Alright everybody, in this video I want to share with you guys how I can create a good and punchy sounding drum bounce inside of FL Studio. I'm going to try to cover every single drum sound and how you should go about it, but besides that we are not going to waste any more time. Let's just jump straight in. Alright, so we are now here in FL Studio 21 as you guys can see, but before we start laying down any sort of pattern, I just want to mention one super important thing, and this is that no matter how cool and bouncy your drum bounce is, it is not going to sound good if you're not using good quality drum sounds. So in this video, all the drum sounds I am personally going to be using are coming from my new Mirage multi-kit. It is literally a huge kit with 6 different kits all in one bundle. So in this bundle you have a drum kit with 200 different and unique sounding drum sounds. You have a melody MIDI pack over here with 50 different melody MIDIs just to spark some quick inspiration. You also have a phrases kit with 30 live played flute and violin instruments. You also have a portal bank with 50 presets, a sample pack with 31 different samples, and lastly a texture kit with 30 different textures just to add some ambience to your samples and loops. So if you guys like any of the drum sounds you hear in this video, I am currently having a sale on a kit, so if it sounds interesting you can obviously go check it out. It is on my website. It is BBMarko.com, or you guys can just click the first link down below. Alright, so since this video is obviously all about drum bounce, we're just going to start off with a simple sample. Yeah, I think I like this one right here. Alright, so we're just going to drag this one in. Now the first thing we want to do is obviously just put this to the right BPM. So we're going to bump it up to 147 right there. And then we're just going to lay down a simple pattern underneath this sample like this. Alright, so the first drum sound I like adding is personally going to be the clap. We have a lot of different clap sounds over here. Depending on the vibe you're going for, you can pick and choose the different clap sounds. But for this one, I just want a clean and crisp sounding clap. So let us just pick this one right here. Drag that in. Now the claps are usually very simple. You don't really have to do too much to them. So since we are working in 147 BPM, we're just going to put the clap on the second gray pad over here. And we're just going to do this for every single one on the first 4 bars. Then we can obviously just open up the piano roll and copy over the same exact pattern. With this, you're going to start to get a super simple bounce to the beat. So this is usually how every single clap pattern would go, but I just want to show you guys a few little tricks you can do if you really want to spice up your bounce and get a little bit of a unique sound to your beat. So one trick is to do some sort of fading clap pattern right here. This is usually very popular in West Coast music. To do this, you just want to put a clap right before the clap would usually hit right there. So we are going to put it 2 spaces to the left and just drag it out until the next clap. Then you just want to hit Alt and U to bring up the chopper like this. Make sure to hit accept, and then you want to go down to the velocity and just hold your right mouse button while fading it upwards to the clap right there. And also another trick is to add some sort of clap roll at the end over here. I personally like to do this with snares, but there are also a lot of people that like to do this with their clap patterns. So an example can be just to drag it out like this and then maybe have one at the end over here as well. So we have the roll right there. Then it kind of falls down nicely to the beginning again. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the clap. The next sound is going to be a hi-hat. So over here we have a lot of different hi-hats. Again, you just want to pick one that sounds clean and nice. So let's just drag in this one right here. Alright, so the hi-hat is probably one of the more fun drum sounds. This is because you can go really crazy or really simple with the hi-hats. So the first thing we're going to do is just right click over here and fill each 2 steps. So we have it very simply laid out like this. And then we're also going to open up the piano roll and just hit Ctrl L to link every single hi-hat. Now one key aspect with the hi-hat pattern is to really mess around with both the velocity but also the panning over here. This is really going to help you get a cool and unique sounding bounce to the drums. So I personally like to just lower the velocity a little bit down the second hi-hat over here, and then I just like to copy this over for the whole thing just so we have that up and down fading type of velocity. We also want to add a couple of rolls to spice this up a little bit. So the clap would usually hit right here, which is right in between the 2 bars. Therefore I like to add a roll right after or right before the clap. So let us just add a small little roll over here. Again, just hit Alt and U on your keyboard to bring up the chopper and mess around with this knob over here. Then we are also going to go over here to the magnet tool and go to the 3rd beat just so we can switch between the timing a little bit. So let us add a triplet roll over here on the start of the 2nd bar. To spice this up a little bit, again, go down to the velocity and fade it downwards. Then we can actually also add a low note just to get some more of those low frequencies. Right, so we have a cool little hi-hat bounce right here. Just copy that over. Alright, so you guys can probably hear how much both the velocity, the timing, and also the notes could actually do to the whole hi-hat pattern. Now to finish this hi-hat pattern off, like I said, we're just going to go over to the panning and spice up the pan a little bit. So we're going to pan this to the left and we're going to pan this one to the right and just mess it a little bit around with it until you have a nice and cool sounding hi-hat pattern. Get a little bit more wider sound with it to the left and to the right. Alright, the next sound we're going to add is going to be an open hat. Usually I like to have an open hat on the first hit as well as later on in the drum pattern. So let's drag in this one first. This is just going to go on the first hit right here, nothing more. Then we can also drag in this one, just so we can have it a little bit later in the pattern. And I'm also going to add a reverse open hat as well. Now the reverse open hat is a little bit easier than the rest of them. So I usually just tend to put the reverse open hat right before the clap would hit, just so it kind of fades in perfectly into the clap. Alright, so we can try to put one here. And that's pretty cool. Let's try to put one here as well. Yeah, I actually think I prefer this one first. Alright, so what we're going to do for this is just have the reverse open hat right before the first clap would hit. And then we're also going to add a different open hat over here just before the second clap. So you really want to try to make those open hats complement both the claps and the hi-hat pattern. Next, we want to mess around with rims, perks, and snares. So I'm personally a very big fan of rims. So we have a couple over here. Let's just drag in this one. Now to spice things up a little bit, you can actually also layer your rims with your claps and then have a rim hit right after as well. Or you can also treat your rims more like a snare if you just want to switch them out. So a pretty famous snare pattern is just having it hit right here and right here. You guys have probably heard this plenty of times. It's a very popular bounce. But if you don't want to have the standard bounce like this and you want to spice it up a little bit, you can actually also try to add the snares right after or right before the hi-hat rolls. So let's try to add a more unique snare pattern. Let's go ahead and mess with the velocity as well. Now over here on the end, we can do a similar trick to what we did with the clap pattern. So let us just add a small little roll again using the Alt and U command on our keyboard. The reason why I like adding the snare roll over here on the end instead of the clap pattern is I feel like the snare roll actually sounds way better if you actually pitch down some of the notes as well. So let's check out the snare roll at the end. Yeah, that's fire for sure. Now we also have a lot of different perks over here as well. As you guys can see, the perks are a little bit hit or miss, so you are going to try to find a few sounds that would actually fit nicely with your beat. So I really like this perk over here. So we're actually just going to drag this in as well. And I feel like this would go perfectly right here, because then we have the perk hit and also fade out on the fourth bar. Yeah, that's perfect. So you for sure don't want to overdo it with the perks. They are supposed to just be a little bit subtle to add some more bounce to the whole beat. Next, we are just going to finish off our drum pattern with both the kick and the 808. Right, one very important thing before we actually add that 808 and kick is that we need to make sure to remove all sort of low end from the melody. This is because we don't want the low end from the 808 and kick to really blend in together with the low end from the melody. That would just sound super muddy and it wouldn't even sound any good at all. So we are just going to open up a EQ on our melody. Let's just play the melody first. Go over here and just make sure to remove all sort of low end. So pretty much everything from 170 and below you should try to remove so it doesn't clash with the kick and the 808. Now that we have this, let me show you guys how to create a bouncy 808 pattern. Obviously you want to make sure to put your 808 down on the root note of your melody. In this case, our whole melody root note is actually on B, so we're just going to have our 808 hit on the B throughout the whole thing. With the 808 you also want to make sure to open it up and go to the envelope. Then we're just going to make a square to make sure that we have full control over our 808. Go over to the wrench tool and lastly just hit cut self to make sure that it cuts exactly when the next 808 would usually hit. So what we are going to do for the 808 pattern is just keep it very simple on the start, and then we're going to try to make it more busy towards the end of the pattern. Make it a bit more busy over here. So let us try to cut it up over here and make a cool little roll at the end as well. Again, we're just going to do that Alt and U command while fading up the velocity over here to get that cool sounding 808 roll. That's pretty fire. Now one more thing to make the 808 a bit more present as well is actually just to pitch it up 1 octave, just so it gets more of those higher frequencies as well. Yeah, so I think the roll actually sounds perfectly once we pitch it up 1 octave. Now over here in the second part, I want to show you guys a super fire trick. And this is actually to do with a triplet over here on the last part. So when you have your 7th bar hitting right here, I usually again like going to the magnet tool and hit 3rd beat. And then we're going to make a super cool and fire sounding triplet bounce. So the way you're actually going to do this is just by shortening your 808 until you have 3 808 hits inside of this little part over here. So that means if we shorten the 808 like this, we can just copy this over 3 times and it fits perfectly. Now, if you guys remember, we did actually do this envelope thing with the 808. The reason why we did this is so we can have full control over the 808. That means that we can actually turn the velocity up a little bit on this one, pitch it up 1 octave like this, and we're just going to finish it off by putting a 808 at the end over here. And now take a listen to the 808 right here. Yeah, that's fire. Alright, the last thing we're going to do is just add a quick little kick. We're just going to open up the kick map and drag in this one. Then we're just going to copy the same exact 808 pattern over to the kick like this. Once you have this, you can actually highlight everything and hit Alt and K on your keyboard to make sure to line everything down on a C file. Hit Shift D to just shorten the notes a little bit. And we are going to remove some of the kick hits over here where the 808 rolls would be. This is just so we don't have too much going on. Now, when we layer the kick with the 808 right there, it's going to make sure that it hits extra hard. But one cool little trick you guys can do is actually put the kick hit right before or right after the 808 would usually hit. So as you guys can see now, we have them layered as the 808 is right here, but we're actually going to put this kick a little bit before just so it has a cool bounce to it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. This part as well. Yeah, that's super fire. So that's a super nice bounce we have going on. Alright, so that is pretty much the ultimate guide to having a super cool and unique sounding drum bounce. As I said, if you guys like the drum sounds you hear, you can obviously go check out the Mirage kit. It is the first link down below, and I of course hope you guys learned something new. Besides that, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time.